Yeah, so I'm Tom Andriola. I'm the CIO at the University of California. You heard our president, Janet Napolitano, earlier in the day. I've been with the university only about a year. Prior to that, I was a business leader running software and software as a service companies in the healthcare space. So I come with a kind of a for-profit mentality, really helping drive the transformation of the university that Janet is championing. So it gives me an opportunity to touch aspects of research, teaching and learning, healthcare, and the overall mission of public service.
Super. Andre?
Hello everyone, Andrei Zulanev with Wipro. Wipro is an IT services company, 7 billion revenue, 150,000 employees. The role that I play in the company is incubating next generation IT services in this evolving cloud ecosystem. So that's what I have been doing for the past 3 years, and happy to talk about it.
Super. Next up.
Dan Cordingley, founder and CEO of Teradici. We're now what's referred to, I guess, as a late-stage startup. We're about 260 people. What Teradici does is we focus on developing the PC over IP technology, which is a remote display protocol that's really powering a lot of different virtual desktop products. We're best known for our long partnership with VMware. It's the basis of VMware View and now Horizon. Most recently, we also started partnering with Amazon Web Services. Their new virtual desktop out of the cloud called Workspaces is built on our technology. And we have a lot of partners, both the large server OEMs right through to a lot of different companies in vertical industries. And so our technology is really used to deliver everything from remoting CAD workstation and media and entertainment, rendering of movies and things, right through to knowledge workers and into even very esoteric applications like industrial control.
Super.
Hi, I'm Doug Soltesz. I'm the CIO for Bud Van Lines. Bud Van Lines is a nationwide moving and storage company. We're one of the largest independents out there, but we're still dwarfed by some of our competition. We're a consumer of software-defined everything because we need it to stay agile and keep ahead of our competition.
Thank you.
I'm Gunnar Berger. I'm a CTO at Citrix's Zen Desktop and Apps group, which is pretty much Zen App, Zen Desktop, which I would think most people here might be connected with that in one way, shape, or form. In that group, it's from protocol stacks to the clients. I mean, it's really the entire end user experience from beginning to the end, and inside the infrastructure to the mobile phone sitting in everyone's pockets right now. So we have a big play in the market and how you push out applications, Windows apps, and even as of last week, Linux apps to any type of device.
And Gunnar, you just joined Citrix, right? Just recently. Where were you before?
Gartner.
And you have a lot of folks from Gartner, I think, here, right?
Really?
Yeah, I've seen them. They're Gartner logos. They're doing a lot of tweeting. Those numbers are wrong. That's my number.
They erase their brains when they leave, don't they?
There's a magic quadrant going on right now for Gunnar.
I was in Gartner for technical professionals. It's a special group with a very technical side of it. It's actually old Burton Group. That got acquired by Gartner.
So you're smarter.
No, I'm just saying that. they focus on, Gartner that most people think of as magic quadrant,
right.
market skew stuff, whereas GTP is the focus on really technical stuff. Which is why when Citrix brought me on, they bring me on to CTO, technical.
Super.
Side of it. I'm a nerd. I'm very much a nerd.
You look good.
I can dress up.
Sinclair.
Hi, Sinclair.
Speaking of a nerd.
Yeah, definitely a nerd here.
That was a compliment.
So Sinclair Schuler, CEO of Apprenda. We're a platform as a service company. And we have a pretty basic thesis that just about every large organization in the Global 2000 is becoming a software company. When you look at the end user psychology, almost everybody expects software with everything they buy, whether it's a Nike shoe or a Tesla car. And that's created a tremendous amount of pressure on the IT stack to actually evolve so that it can help developers very quickly build applications. But the legacy IT stack is not prepped for that. So what our technology does is it gets layered on top of the traditional data center as well as public cloud resources and supercharges that infrastructure so that developers can become very productive and build modern cloud services. We focus almost exclusively on large enterprises, so customers are folks like Boeing, McKesson, JP Morgan, State of New York, and we really do try to put a lot of emphasis on the fact that these organizations are all transforming to become software companies and they need technology like this to do it successfully in the future.
Super. JR?
Hi, I'm JR Rivers. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Cumulus Networks. We provide networking software that help customers as they add capacity and try to drive down their operational costs as they move into software-defined data center.
Sam Grimblatt loves you. I don't know what that means.
That means Dell's one of our partners. They're providing system IT hardware, as you imagine, server storage, networking hardware, and we provide kind of that networking software that ties them in. And we're starting to win a lot of deals together, and that's where the love comes from.
Super.
I'm a nerd as well, but I'm not as good looking as Sinclair. So.
I'm Jeff McNaught, and this is really surreal, Tarkin. For 7 years, I was Tarkin's CMO at Wise. And so I used to be on the other end of the equation. It's much hotter up here than it was back in production. When Dell acquired Wise, I became part of Dell, and now I run marketing and strategy for Dell's Cloud Client Computing Unit, which is all about the desktop virtualization side of our business.
So by the way, you're humble. Basically, Jeff is the father and mother of Think Lions. Actually, he's been at Wise for what, 47 years?
Thank you, yeah.
No, what was it, sorry?
I'm only 30.
I know. You started when you were -10.
That's right.
You've been how long at Wise?
26 years at Wise.
From the beginning almost, and then now at Dell running the cloud client computing with Steve Lalla and the team, with Jeff Clark. Obviously, Marius talked about some of the data center stuff. You're going to obviously cover some of the end-user computer stuff.
Side, right.
And you guys had a big showing, obviously, at VMworld. And also other events like Citrix Synergy and so on. So
we made a bunch of announcements, and IDC just announced we are now #1 provider in the world for thin client technology.
You must be running marketing. That was a good one. Nice plug. So speaking of all that, Maria, thank you for being here. A little bit of background on you and what you're doing right now, and also EY. By the way, it's Ernst & Young, EY, or EY?
It's now EY, formerly Ernst & Young.
All right.
My name is Maria Pinelli. I'm Global Vice Chair at EY. I run our Strategic Growth Markets business, and what that means is I run our entrepreneurship business worldwide. Actually, we're the world leader in advising, guiding, and recognizing entrepreneurs. We took the world's largest internet company public, met them when they were 4 employees, one of the largest and most prominent e-commerce companies. We met them when they were packing boxes. I remember driving away going, do you think they'll make any money? We took the Google of China public. I oversee the Entrepreneur of the Year program. That's how I met Tarkin. He was a winner when he launched Wise here in California, and of course there's other great companies that have won that award, Michael Dell and Ed, originally from Citrix. Just want to say that someone said it earlier, 60% of the global Forbes 2000 turnover every 5 years. 60%. In the US, it's even higher. So we're in this business because we absolutely know the future market leaders of today, of tomorrow, are sitting here today. And we're absolutely delighted to work with them. Good to be here with clients and partners on this panel. We partner with some of the companies here on cloud as a service. And just wanted to back up all of the information here on big data. We are in the big data business. Actually, I regret I did not bring our CEO. She has a $3 billion spend in the next 5 years.
What's her number?
I will introduce too. But we have $1 billion service business. We did 11 acquisitions in this space in the last 4 years. We plan to take it to $3 billion. We're absolutely very serious. I'm here because this is the next market leading trend, and you all know that. And so thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, Maria. By the way, on that note, I know there are a lot of VCs throughout the day here circulating through, a lot of private equity firms, banks, looking at a lot of deals. And what do they care about? Deal flow. Absolutely. Interesting companies, interesting areas to invest in and innovate. Again, I really mean this. We talked about this earlier. Competition makes us better, not bitter. There are a lot of computing companies also on these panels and throughout the day. Part of the reason is we compete, but we add more value for the customer needs. So from that perspective, Maria is a very important person because she sees a lot of different companies coming through the EY cycle, also because of the entrepreneurship program she's been running. Please take some time, introduce yourselves, exchange cards with the EY team and Maria, so you can be connected to that kind of an ecosystem. That's the cloud of entrepreneurship ecosystem for you. So having said all this, let's get started. Even though we said it's going to be more end-user centric, mobility, internal things, all these things at the end of the day go back to data center as well. Even though on this panel we have a few companies focusing solely in the front end. So on that note, Dan Teradici, give us a little bit of background, because Teradici, when I met you first, I thought you were Japanese. Teradici sounds like, you know, like a sushi type, right? But you originally a Canadian company, now global. You've been you founded the company.
I did.
Yeah. Give a little bit of history on what you guys are doing and why you're here at VMworld. What's your connection to VMware?
Sure, sure. So, you know, we started the company really with the, you know, we're all out of the networking industry, very familiar with networking protocols. And when we started the company, we really could see that networks were getting faster, technology was available where we really could deliver a very high-end user experience over the network, where you could put everything else back into the data center, the applications, the data, the compute, and really deliver this amazing user experience. And so, you know, the protocol of the day at that time was kind of Microsoft RDP, and we knew as a startup we couldn't just be sort of 10% better than what was out there. So we really shot for the kind of user experience that the user could not tell, regardless of the application, even high-end applications like CAD or doing movie animation, you could not tell between whether the PC was under the desk or the workstation was under the desk, or it was back, at that time, back in the data center, kind of prior to cloud. So that's what we've always done. That's what we've always focused on, how to deliver the best possible user experience over any network, any application. And we got started, interesting enough, in the very high-end space, workstation space. And I guess about 6 or 7 years ago, VMware approached us as VMware was really looking to get into the desktop virtualization area, really start to make that a real business for them. Selected our protocol, and that started a very strong relationship with VMware, where we've really integrated it into their successive generations of VMware View and Horizon. And obviously that competes with Citrix on Zen Desktop and now Zen App. And we've really seen that market, you know, transition over the last several years. User experience has been fantastic, any device. We can now remote applications. Certainly Sanjay and team at VMware have brought in a lot of other capabilities into the platform over the last year, AirWatch and things like that. And then, I guess about a year ago, you know, we'd always been talking to the Amazon folks about this, and you know, they were sort of unsure about whether they would enter the market. And about a year ago, when they approached us, they said, we want to go. We want to go deliver virtual desktops out of the AWS cloud. And when it was announced at last year's reInvent, Andy Jassy said this, and they told us at the time, they said—
Andy Jassy is?
The head of AWS. When we said, hey, what's changed? Why do you want to go do this? They said, well, we really listen to customer feedback. That's how we drive our business. And they said, this is now the most requested service AWS customers are putting forward, which is a Windows virtual desktop out of the Amazon cloud. And so we were able to work closely with Amazon and get them to market in about 6 months, and they GA'd that product at the end of March. And so that now gives customers a cloud option for virtual desktops. VMware did the same thing with Destone. Destone was a longtime partner of Teradici's. Peter's not here, but Peter was the CEO of Destone. They were really focused on providing service providers with a software solution for standing up desktop as a service. And with that acquisition that VMware made last year, and vCloud Air now, VMware also offers a desktop as a service offering with our technology as well. And so what we've seen with this emergence of cloud-based desktops is it now gives users, you know, before if you wanted to do VDI, you had to stand up a large VDI installation on-prem, and a lot of companies have done that, but obviously that takes a certain amount of skill set and investment. With desktop as a service, now literally you can turn on 5, 10, 100, hundreds of desktops instantaneously and get the benefit of VDI right away, right out of the cloud. Very economically, and more importantly, you don't need all those people and infrastructure to go build it out. So we think this is going to be a game changer in virtual desktops and applications out of the cloud, because it really now lets you sort of unlock the power of the cloud around desktops very quickly, very fast.
Super. I think as you're talking, obviously Andre is listening to you in his calm Russian way, and he's going to tell you they have a vision for that too, as Wipro. You talked about desktop as a service, and you run that business, right, Andre? Talk about this virtual desk a little bit. Obviously, you guys are based in India, headquarters-wise, but you guys are a big global company. You have many, many Fortune 1000 customers in production. And now we're moving from service integration BPO business. Now you get an actual services business as a service, software as a service, desktop as a service, and so on. So give us a little bit of background on what you guys are doing.
Well, I think it was about 5 topics that I need to connect. Right?
You can do it. I know you.
So let me make an attempt. From Wipro perspective, we're an IT services company. And now about 3 years back, we've been looking at cloud ecosystem and seeing, hey, it's a drastic change. And what role will we play 5 years down the road, right, in this ecosystem? And certain things were obvious. I mean, when hardware moves into public cloud, you don't need thousands of people to manage it, at least at the hardware level up to the hypervisor. The other interesting thing is when people move into SaaS and a company moves to Workday, for example, and earlier for Oracle ERP, we were kind of charging customers millions of dollars for integration with this product, with that product, and so on. And here you deploy Workday and they have all those connectors. So this is how the services business is impacted. But anyway, as some previously people talked here, any crisis is an opportunity, and that's how we looked at it. So what role can we play? And so we tried to step back and look at it in a bigger picture. Again, some of this was talked about by Mark in terms of technology and how Citrix looks at this ecosystem. Basically, there is a data center. The data center is there to deliver applications, and I mean, if you try to look top-down, then you will say, okay, this is a business process. There are 5 apps that deliver it, and what's the availability of that business process to run? And there is a workplace. Mark was explaining that the vision ultimately that the users want to work where they want to work, and desktop virtualization enables it, but there are mobile devices you can do work as well. So essentially, when we looked at this, we said that we will work with customers who don't want to invest in their IT and learn technology that continuously comes new and new. And we will become the total outsourcing provider, but as a service provider with our standard stack. The big difference versus traditional IT ecosystem, we said we will standardize on the stack. And that stack becomes a platform. And that platform is not just one product that's needed to deliver that workplace. Yes, VMware has a great solution for this and covering more and more pieces. Yes, Microsoft is a big part of an ecosystem, but for the customer, you need to come to one portal and get a number of services. And we're looking from that perspective. How can we give that customer, the business user, that one portal? You come in, you get all your apps, all your desktops. Behind it, there is a service delivery platform that loops in these individual products to get it delivered. And as part of this journey, we will...
What's the scale of this, Andre? Scale in your mind as you guys move forward? What's the scale in terms of numbers, maybe users or size-wise ballpark?
It is hundreds of thousands, which is not far away. Because what we're doing, we are working with service providers and taking it as a white label service into the SMB ecosystem, and there are several contracts that have been signed or pending to take it. So that will be a huge, big market.
But you're also drinking your own champagne internal, right? Wipro-wise, you have, how many VMs do you guys hold within Wipro?
That's the best way, right, to drink your own champagne.
Yeah.
Well, it's called dog fooding, I guess. And
eat your own Ostrogonov.
Well, Microsoft CIO was saying it, let's call it ice creaming or something to make it sound better. But yes, we did deploy it internally, currently at several, well, basically over 10,000 users internally for data centers. We believe in virtualization. But I think the last part that I wanted to mention, Tarkan, is, and that's why I guess I'm here, that when we look at building the stack, we are looking at not taking the traditional reference architectures. We are first of all looking at evaluating what's the most efficient stack. And secondly, within that, it's software defined. And within that, it's open source. And so those are primarily technology we're trying to adopt as much as we can within our standard stack to deliver the service.
And you've been using some of the Citrix solutions, as you kind of alluded to, obviously. Gunnar, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the application, but He's your best friend, buddy. He's paying your salaries on this one. Trust me on this.
Tarkin is provoking. This was the.
I like the provoke. Those are the two hot seats, but Tom has sugar. Don't worry. He's gonna be nice.
So I have great respect for it. Teradici is really the one of the top platforms for delivering virtual desktops, and no question why VMware selected that, and Amazon eventually. We have selected Citrix. That decision happened 3 years back. We believe it's a company with history in application virtualization and now desktop virtualization. We've built our own software around it. Interestingly, they keep building software that neglects half of what we build, but by that time we build something else. And ultimately, when we show it to customers, they say, oh, the product vendors didn't show us what you are showing. We want to work with you. And
we appreciate your business as well. Full disclosure, we are obviously a partner with you on this journey. So Gunnar, you joined Citrix recently. Obviously, Citrix, before you're joining Citrix acquired ZenPrice. They've done that mobile move as you were probably joining, integrating the business. What's the new vision? Obviously, Mark talked about it at a higher level. Now, if you can bring it down a little bit to a product level, what do you see next? These type of customers. Now, you're talking about using Citrix, becoming a desktop as a service, in a sense. What Andre is talking about, creating a service like Amazon, but coming from Wipro for their Fortune 1000 customers. How do you enable that and beyond?
The vision I see is Citrix Workspace Services, so CWS. And we talk about DAS and what Amazon's doing with DAS and using Dan's product in there. But the DAS mentality is one of a parachuter, right? If you want to move into DAS, you're jumping out of a plane and you're landing on a cloud provider like Amazon. The problem with that is, what if you want to get back in the plane? What if you want to get back to where you started, being on-premises? And so Citrix Workspace Services, we're looking at how do you build a bridge, one that you can go to and from a cloud provider, be it Azure, Microsoft are great partners of ours, or be it AWS, or a Google Cloud, or one of our thousands of CSP customers. So when I think of DAS, I get really concerned because I've seen the strategies. I've seen how Amazon has delivered on this. I've seen how originally Desktone has delivered on it, and it's just always kind of, hey, bring us your desktops, but desktops is just this much of the story, right? I mean, if you actually work with any user organization, you know that the applications are really where it's complex, and also my data. How do I handle all of this? And so really when a DAS provider is out there trying to sell you a DAS, what they're really doing is saying, please give us your desktops because we want your entire data center, right? We want all of it. And you'll talk to some customers that are 100% okay with that. I talked to a customer 2 days ago at VMworld where they got Chromebooks and they're like, we're 100% focused in the cloud, and that's great. That's the whole idea of anyness that we say at Citrix. If that's what you want, that's great. But then I also heard Wells Fargo on the stage right before us, who says, we're not going to put our data out there. We're going to keep it internal. And honestly, that's the reality of most enterprises, right? The idea of cloud is like, man, this is really cool stuff, but it's anyness. It's what works for you, and not just what works for you as a company, what works for you inside your company for that specific use case. And so maybe you have certain use cases where jumping on AWS or jumping on Azure makes a ton of sense, and we want to enable that via this bridge, and that bridge is CWS. And so I'm the CTO of DNA, which is ZenApp, Zen Desktop division, and so we're building that bridge for us. But there's also the bridge being built for all our different units. Zen Mobile, it's going to happen across the board, but you kind of have this brick across the top called CWS. So really think of it as take our IP and turn it into a SaaS-based application, where if I want to consume ZenApp, if I want to consume Zen Desktop, I simply log into a SaaS-based console and I say, I want ZenApp, I want it on this cloud, and it's going to cost this amount of money. Or I want it on this cloud and it's going to cost a different amount of money. It's what works for you. And so I think that's what Mark talks about, is that anyness message is going on and on and on.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of VMware copying our message and saying it's and instead of any. But it just shows that Mark has had a very strong vision in this market. And I really believe in it. Coming from my background, that as I started to look into DAS, and I just said, I don't buy it. I don't buy that you can take your average customer, and honestly, even small businesses, and say, hey, just give us everything, right? There's some small businesses who are just like, no, I'm just not comfortable with that. So you have to say, okay, how do we get you there? I'm not disputing that 10 years down the road, that cloud is going to be the driving factor of every organization. I don't dispute that one bit. But that's 10 years down the road. That's over the horizon. how do we actually get them there? And get them there in a way that they can kind of dial that amp up. Like, you know what? I'm comfortable putting my data out there, so maybe I'll use something like ShareFile. You know what? That worked really well for me, so now I'm comfortable with some other thing, like Salesforce. I'm comfortable with my CRM information out there, so I'll dial that up a little bit more. And so it's our job as a company to enable that, and also similar to what Jude was talking about, to create a single interface so I can consume it, be it Windows apps, Linux apps, SaaS-based apps, whatever that is. I mean, that's the message of Citrix, and that's what our vision is. As a
super, super. And that was kind of what we heard earlier from Mark as well with the software-defined workplace message, right? That the any message that you mentioned. So speaking of that, and hearing you speak, and also hearing obviously what Andre talked about and Tradici talked about, Jeff, at Dell, you're bringing all these pieces together, right? You're working very closely with Microsoft, very closely with VMware, you're like United Nations, very close with Citrix and Tradici. You have clients and client devices with different form factors. And now you're moving into displays. You announced a new product called Cloud Connect a while back. You're carrying it on your neck. Now, what is the next step? Give us a little bit of background on what you're working on right now. And you made some announcements, obviously, in the last few weeks. But how you're taking it to the next level?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, Dell today is all about choice. Now choice in desktop virtualization can be terrifying for a CIO. I spend a lot of time with CIOs where they're really trying to understand the level of things that we're talking about here today. And if you look at the keynote that Pat did here at VMworld, it was an awesome vision. 3 months ago, Mark was here doing an awesome vision. So you have that choice, you have the Microsoft choice, several others in fact. And the great thing about that choice is, and the complexity of it is, a company like Dell can come in and actually hold your hand, give you the big bear hug, and help you implement that vision in a very real way. And I think what makes Dell so different than kind of the other two companies that are sort of at our scale is that in cloud client computing, which, as you know very well, is built from the WISE people and the original desktop virtualization people within Dell, is that we take this true end-to-end approach to all of this. So if you want to build a Citrix vision, we have the servers, the storage, the networking, the software, and the endpoints all tuned for Citrix. And we've built what we call reference architectures where we set up all of our gear, we set up the Citrix, we test the hell out of it. We get the Citrix guys to come in and say, does it work exactly the way you want it to? Oh, okay, we'll tweak this. All right, there. Now it's perfect. And then we put that in a reference architecture and make that available for customers. We do the same thing for VMware. We do the same thing for Microsoft. We've got a little product called vWorkspace and a product called WSM. And so no matter what choice you want to make, Dell can make it simpler to achieve the vision that you love from Mark, for instance. And so that's really the big thing we're doing today, is just making this so much easier. And we participated in the announcement of Evo Rail this week. You roll the thing out of the box, you plug it into the network, you plug it into the power, and 12.5 minutes later, that's what Sam said, you've got a working virtualization environment. You remember, it didn't used to be like this. It was wires and cables and things. It was a mess. And this market is now becoming mature to the point where people want that appliance model. They want it to be easy. They want to focus on their business, not on the technology. So with our big partners, we're able to really deliver this. Now, making it simple also means making storage better, because storage is one of the most expensive components of desktop virtualization, and it held back many a customer from making this decision. So the software-defined everything, our partnership with Nexenta, and making storage more easy to build, own, control is a huge part of making this market grow faster and making it easier for CEOs and CIOs and et cetera to consume this technology.
And when you talk about the consumption, you talk about storage, compute, and obviously networking. So, JR, in a sense, all this talk, you're listening to this, why am I doing on this panel? Keep talking about video. But actually, you're in this panel for a reason. For these things to happen from the end user to the back end, you need to glue them together in a cost-effective, secure, manageable way, and obviously that's where you guys play. With tons of love, as we heard
we're the arms dealers. What do you want to do?
Exactly. So talk about, Jared, talk about what you guys do a little bit differently. Obviously, we had Big Switch earlier. Pat talked about Nicira and NSX and what they're doing for SDN. There are other companies, obviously, in the panels and also in the audience, in the space, like PK8. You have Contrail now. Juniper is in this business, right? How are you different? And how are you tying to some of these workloads like VDI, like desktop virtualization and other workloads tying to that?
Right, as you look at all of this software-defined your mama stuff, what you recognize is it all involves moving lots of data around very inefficiently, horribly inefficiently. But to the consumer, it makes their operations efficient. So you're kind of, if you think about computer programming language, we used to write programs in assembly language, super efficient, great use of CPU resources, blah, blah, blah. Nobody writes in assembly language anymore. It's always some crazy high-level language, very inefficient use of CPU resources, but phenomenally productive from the business side. And I think, Randy said in the last panel, he made the argument that infrastructure is not a competitive gain for any one business. I think maybe some people mistook his point. His real point was that you should expect that you're going to build out high capacity infrastructure, and that's not going to be a differentiator, that your applications are the piece that matter. From Cumulus Networks' perspective, we help customers get to that software-defined data center vision. Inside their data centers, we work with very, very large web services companies, cloud service providers, content providers, enterprises, software as a service businesses, platform as a service businesses, to give them cost-effective, high-capacity infrastructure. Dell's one of our hardware partners. They recently, back in early this year, opened up their networking hardware platforms to third-party operating systems. They have networking software, kind of Dell IP. Some of their customers said, hey, that stuff's great, but I really want a different operating model, and that's where Cumulus Linux comes in. We help them from an operational perspective. It makes it a lot more straightforward to stand up infrastructure. We also participated in the VMware Evo rack announcement this week, and so we were kind of some of the technology that lives underneath that piece, because it allows people to stand things up extremely quickly.
You're everywhere. You're like Zora.
We're everywhere, yeah. And so, I mean, what you can do is you look at Cisco. Cisco kind of helps people connect stuff together, but you pay a crap load of money for it. And if you're a Cisco partner, what you can bet your butt on is they want to eat your lunch. And they may not want to eat it today, but they're going to eat it one day, right? And so the world needs kind of a new interconnect company. And from a software perspective, we come in and do that. And we work with our hardware partners like Dell to help customers out on, to build the whole complete system.
So Cisco makes you better?
No.
Or other way around?
We make you better, Cisco.
I'm trying to get some Randy in you. All right, that's fantastic. Obviously, this space is still ready for disruption, even though there's been a lot done, a lot of acquisitions in that space. I'm sure Maria is looking at a lot of different entrepreneurs and startups in that space, software-defined data center, but not only storage, obviously in the networking space in a big way. So before Maria, I come back to you. Sinclair, Apprenda, right? You gave in a high-level picture to it. When you listen to everybody is thinking about runtime, right? We're running businesses, running operations, running systems. We're selling and marketing and talking to administrators. As Apprenda, do you talk to the administrator or DevOps people or application people? Who do you talk to the most?
We're in the fortunate and unfortunate position of talking to all. So I'm a developer by trade. I worked at a small bank named Morgan Stanley as a developer, and I kind of understand that side of the world, and it became kind of interesting to see what happened in the space. We keep talking about end user computing. People don't buy computing, they buy expectations and outcomes, right? That's what somebody wants when they spend money on something. They don't want computing. So when we look at the expectations of the modern world, it's that the end user does want software with everything, right? I mean, what do I have here? What is this? It's not a phone, it's my retail bank branch right now. I deposit checks and transfer money, and I can look up account balances all through my phone. 15 years ago, you had to go to a bank branch for that. The most stunning thing that happened to me in terms of software expectation as an end user was that I bought a test strip for chlorination in my pool. And normally, you dip the strip and compare it to a color code chart. Now I take a picture with my phone. It sends it to a web service. It analyzes the color and stores in a journal the history of the chlorination in my pool. So we're in this amazing era where now everything is becoming driven by software, what we call the software-defined enterprise at Apprenda. And it's an opportunity that unfortunately most enterprises aren't well equipped to pursue. So if we're thinking about end user expectation, not end user computing, then how do you equip an organization to actually deliver on this? So the problems that you find in most large Global 2000 companies is that the legacy IT stack is not built for cranking lots of applications through it rapidly. The current model requires way too much time. When I was at Morgan Stanley, once we finished the last line of code in an application, it would take 3 to 4 months to get the infrastructure prepared for us to deploy the app. And this is a virtualized stack. You look at that and it's mind-boggling. The entire market passes you by in 4 months. So the current model is not well equipped to deliver on this vision. that is a cloud services, application-driven end user vision. The second thing is that the application architectures have become tremendously sophisticated. When you build a cloud service, it has to be multi-tenant, it has to be scalable, it has to be highly available, you have to monetize it. So all these added requirements that developers have to tackle, and they're not equipped to do that either from a skill set point of view. So what our technology does is we take all the parties involved, the DevOps people, the IT people, and the developers, and give them a common platform to work against so that this vision can be delivered against. In the Apprenda world, IT is responsible for running our platform inside an enterprise like Boeing, who I mentioned as a customer. And the developers at a place like Boeing are responsible for then consuming the platform and building those applications. But they get two advantages. One is that they can crank applications out very, very quickly, right? Instead of 90 days, 120 days, they'll get an application up and running in 90 seconds. Second, the complexity of building cloud services goes away because it allows your standard developer who understands Java and .NET to build these modern cloud services and deliver them to a world that might be attaching to this at the scale of millions, like my mobile phone app for retail banking. So really all parties are involved in this vision, and our technology does require that we have that diplomacy where we bring them all together to deliver on this end user expectation world, not this end user computing world.
Speaking of the end user expectation, I want to come back to Tom now. By the way, when I met Tom, after spending some time with Janet Napolitano on a Kleiner Perkins event, we were discussing the research aspects of the UC system and how much opportunity we have, and actually we're not moving fast enough with the vendor community to research together, to build value together. Tom came to my office actually. We had a meeting scheduled for half an hour. Almost 2.5 hours later.
You let me go after about 2.5.
So we're still discussing in an exciting way, but we realize how much there's still to be done. I mean, I'm listening to all these innovation, and also in the room, the previous panel as well. Tom, where do you see, I mean, Janet talked about this a little bit from a business perspective for the system, but where do you see the biggest opportunities for you and risks for you as the CIO? Because at the end of the day, Janet comes back to you to cut the cost.
Yeah, yeah, you know, I think it's, there's so many things I could comment on. I'm going to build on something St. Clair said, which is, you know, he pulled out his mobile phone and said, this is my retail banking, you know, location now, right? You know, and I think, you know, I deal with different populations, and let me pick two that are, I have populations that are very kind of traditional, like the people, the generation that I come from, and then I deal with the high-end researcher who is out on the edge, pushing the envelope on some domain, genetics, astrophysics, climate control, you know, so there's that end, and then I've got millenniums, 190,000 of them, you know, on our campuses who are just consuming the stuff with the mentality of that's normal, and they're going to make normal something brand new. So for me, you know, to put it in one phrase, it's individual empowerment. That's where this is going. Is that, you know, whether it's, you know, the changes that we've seen happen in countries around the world through social media driven change and movements, to I want, you know, what I want to be able to do it now. I want to be able to do it self-service through this little device that I hold in my hand. Individual empowerment is kind of the catch-all vision that I have in terms of every time we have a conversation with an investment we need to make for a capability that we need to evolve to, it's all built around individual empowerment of whatever, you know, user community that we have across our 400,000 people that constitute the University of California, right? Which is students, doctors, researchers, faculty, and internal personnel. So that's what I'm after, internal empowerment. I look at what these guys are starting to bring to market, and again, it's evolving, it's nascent. I need to kind of understand it because at the end of the day, I'm going to broker it in somehow. I may do some of it with internal staff. More and more, I'm trying to teach our CIOs, and I've got 16, you know, across our system, teaching them. It's like, you got to think like a broker. Figure out what you're good at, and if you're not good at it, don't try to become good at it. Go to the market and figure out where these guys are in the maturity of evolving these capabilities for our organization, and figure out the build-buy mix. But you got to integrate it and put it together. That's where I see it going. That's how I think about, you know, how we got to evolve ourselves as a 400,000 person organization.
And some of those CIOs, local CIOs, are actually among yourselves. And by the way, Tom calls the warlords, those CIOs, because they've been doing their own thing for a long time. You were also trying to connect all those pieces together to cut costs. You have a lot of investments you made.
Absolutely, we are asset rich. In a lot of ways, I look at the underutilization of our assets because we've worked in silos of called, you know, locations, campuses, hospitals, and saying, when we get down some of the infrastructure, infrastructure as or platform as a service, we have so many assets that we are not utilizing, and if we pulled that together, we could do, in my mind, 5 times the amount of value for the business per se, if we started to think like a full enterprise and not as a bunch of individual universities or individual health systems.
Doug, from a user perspective, obviously, you asked a great question earlier to Randy and the team. You started everything.
I got
earlier.
a lot of wants.
You are the instigator. You're the catalyst for fighting.
And I'm going to do it again.
Please be our guest. But give us a little bit of background, the history, the things that you work on. Even though you guys are a smaller organization than UC System, you've done a lot of work around OpenSDx, sort of bringing open source innovation, as well as the background systems, the older legacy systems you built. On top of that, software-defined data center vision. So give us a little bit more background on that.
Sure. So I have a lot of wants, and I think that the people here can help me with my wants. From an infrastructure side, I want to be able to buy commodity hardware from Dell, and I want to change that into whatever I want. I want that to be a ESX hypervisor today. But then if I decide that I made a bad choice, I want to be able to change my mind. I want to be able to change that to KVM or to Zen. I want to be able to use commodity hardware and use the Nexenta SAN today, but if something better comes along, I want to switch that. I want to have desktops from Dell, and if those get old, I want to know why I can't get the Thin OS from Wise, because maybe that's the best of breed software defined, and I want to change those desktops over to Thin.
Jeff is getting goosebumps right now.
I know.
You can get the Thin OS. Talk to me afterwards.
I can get the Thin
Those
OS.
are geek goosebumps. He's heard Vice Thin OS is going like Blazer, right?
Software-defined, and we've been using software-defined for a long time because it allows me to change my mind with agility, right? So I want a new switch, and I want to put Cumulus on that switch, but if Cumulus doesn't have the same new features that Big Stack comes out with a week later, I may want to change my mind. And the old paradigm, when I buy an appliance and that's physical hardware and that can't change, I'm stuck for 3 years, I'm stuck for 5 years. One of the biggest things is, not only do I have wants, but my end users have the same wants. So my end users say, Doug, we want these applications, we want them to run well. But they don't care about the back end. They don't care about the infrastructure. They don't care about any of that. And I think that Citrix and Teradici are in a unique spot to help me with that. Let me give you an example. I was stuck in the San Francisco airport a few months ago, and I was in a wing where I was getting almost no internet access. And I had 2 different modems from 2 different providers, and everybody was having the same problem. Everyone was trying to redo their flights. And so I pulled out my cell phone, and I'm using my app, but it kept timing out. It kept having these problems. So then I got a crazy thought. So we use Citrix today, and I thought, why don't I Citrix into the office? I launched, not Internet Explorer, but Firefox, and I got a much better experience. Why? Because the data was living closer to that app. My data needs to live close to the app, but my apps and my data do not need to live close together. So to your point, I can have data in my infrastructure, and he can run on AWS. And even better with Citrix, why do my apps, why do my desktops have to be a Windows desktop? Firefox by itself is not a Windows or a Mac or a Linux application. So I had a much better experience. I actually had to lend my cell phone over to other people to change their flights because the Citrix protocol was more efficient at that laggy, terrible network than the app on my phone, and even than just opening the same Firefox Explorer on my phone. And so I want software-defined, and we've been using software-defined, whether that's Docker, whether that's Nexenta, whether that's Swift, to enable us to change our mind, to get into something with very low risk. And if we change our mind, or not even if we change our mind, if my old ESX servers need to be replaced, I can now repurpose them. They're now something new. They weren't an appliance that is now going in the trash because it can only be one thing. Yeah. So, I have a lot of wants, and I hope these people can help me with them.
That's fantastic. So, Maria, coming back to you, I just wanted to bring the conversation to you because you've seen a lot of these trends. You're dealing with a lot of startups. You've seen the deal flows and different companies coming out. Obviously, they're coming to you also for other reasons as a company. Where are you seeing the trends from your end? You talked about big data earlier for your own needs, but what are the other pieces of dimensions sort of in those trends that you're seeing?
Sure, I just wanted to talk about 2 quick things. One is I wanted to pick up on the comments of DNA. I don't know where Sherry is from Wells Fargo, but I absolutely understood what she was saying in terms of wanting to go out but can't go out too far. And so having flexibility is really, really important. In terms of trends, I just want to say that the kinds of companies we're working with today, we've got 40,000 around the world we've identified. They're growing, they grew their top line at 100% the last 3 years, and employment 64%. So they want to be quicker, smarter, faster. So what we're seeing is, and by the way, I met Dan when he first started his company, but we've got huge...
Much younger, he was much younger, right?
we have huge needs in quantum computing, right? Quicker, smarter, faster. These companies are hiring up so fast, so in terms of workforce solutions, we need our clients are saying, help us. What you've got right now isn't integrated. It's not good enough. I mean, we feel that now. We hire 50,000 people a year. We have no workspace for them. We're just completely sold out. But we can't give them anything that integrates nicely and flexibly to what you just said, Doug. In terms of gaming and virtualization and visualization, huge trends in this area. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about some of the trends in healthcare. Absolutely, in terms of what we're seeing companies do with that type of data and what how they're using that in a secure way is really important. On the consulting side, and I know we're working with you on several projects with cloud as a service, this is very difficult to source for our clients. And then last but not least, one of our fastest growing businesses is in cyberspace and fraud and investigation dispute services. I know you do a lot of work with the government, but we are overwhelmed, sold out. Can't get enough engineers, can't get enough consultants in that space. And those clients that are serving that space, companies like yours, are really the disruptors in this space. So I know I boiled the ocean a little bit,
this
is exactly what's happening.
And also, for those who don't know, Maria is and was and will be involved, obviously, with World Economic Forum, Cybersecurity Alliance, and many other work you're doing.
One thing we didn't talk about, which is really difficult, and if someone's got an answer for this, is, you know, many of you are global companies. You know, just how many do business in more than 4 countries, just to show of hands?
Everybody.
Yeah, okay. So you know the difficulties there. I mean, it's an octopus, right? Europe's very different. Africa, we don't have any infrastructure bandwidth. Europe ties you up forever in security laws. I'm not sure I like what they did in terms of pricing their cellular coverage there. I mean, it's completely regulated. The United States is different, not much different than Canada. And Finland's got the highest per capita per use. We're seeing some great things out of there that people don't know about that'll come out soon. But you know, dealing with all of that is very complicated. So when we're dealing with companies like yours, we need someone who understands all of those differences like that.
Super. Any questions from the crowd as you're thinking? We're gonna move on to our next session very quickly, but Bernard, you're listening. My dear friend from Atlantis Computing, you're thinking. You took your glasses out in a very French way as usual, which means you're thinking. Any questions? How is Atlantis doing, Bernard? How is Atlantis doing?
Pretty well.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of EDI work, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, any other questions from the comment? Madge, please. Madge, talk to my microphone right there. Madge, by the way, thank you for the orange. It looks really good.
Well, since I've been writing my book, so I'm totally out of technology. I used to know all the products, so I have to keep track. Cloud is old already. When I was in stage 3, we virtualized everything before the cloud world came out. We used VMware, you name it. We had all these Citrix and Wise and all those things. What is next in the horizon in your mind? Because cloud, everybody knows about it and all that. What's next?
Tom, do you want to take that? Because you're dealing with this right now.
Yeah, so you know, I try to, you know, having come from the corporate world into the university, you deal with some incredible people, but I think the universities move slower than private sector. So I sit on a lot of CIO forums, you know, and everyone is talking about, you know, cloud and analytics and social media, and they're like, Tom, what's kind of on the horizon for you? And I'm like, we're doubling down on the network. Because, you know, we see the data explosion, and there's not a CIO in my own organization or anyone I talk to who's throwing any data away. Everyone is saving everything. And, you know, so we're looking at, we have really wide bandwidths for research purposes, and we think that's going to be what everyone ultimately has got to go to. We're talking about cognitive intelligence inside the network. So not just segmenting traffic, but actually building intelligence so that the network can deliver an answer back on a piece of information or a question without having to get to the actual data source. Those are the type of things that our researchers are spending time finding research money to bring in and look at. And that's where I would say the one big thing that's down the road. I don't know if it's 3, 5 years, but it probably isn't as far as I think.
Doug, last word.
Yeah, so here's what I'm pushing my developers for next. When we got hit with Hurricane Sandy, we had some downtime, and it could have been way worse for Bud Van Lines. I want active applications. So today, you start getting into clusters or things like that, but you start looking at Hadoop, or you start looking at Cassandra, or Mongo databases, and I can have them at multiple offices, all running, ingesting, egesting the same data, so that I don't have to use an SRM solution, this goes down, and then try to fail it over and have never tested it. I want my data to always be everywhere. And you know what? We're going to find ways to make it work with eventual consistency. And then same thing with like the new Nixenta Edge product, right? The Nixenta Edge product is an object store, and there are other object stores out there. I want to be able to put my data in point A, have it replicated to other regions, and I want to be able to put that data in region B, C, any of them, and have it always up. I don't want to have a failure, and I want to use things like Citrix and Teradici to enable me to connect to my closest app and my closest data, and if I'm having any problem with that line, to then switch over another one. So I'm encouraging my developers, and it's really hard, to stop thinking about, well, I'm going to put that on this Microsoft SQL server, or gee, we need a faster line so that this can be synchronous. I need things to work asynchronously with eventual consistency, be inexpensive, and be active all the time. And that's hard for certain applications.
Speaking of time, you know what happens to you when you're late in Switzerland? You don't want to know. So Günther Distillatori is our next speaker. I want to thank you to the panel. Günther is coming all the way from Switzerland to talk about about the things that are happening in Switzerland around the matter. We talked about this a little bit earlier. It's an amazing topic. We're going to go very quickly, and we're not going to take a break. Günther is going to come up, and I'm going to ask our dear panel, a big hand to the panel for being part of this.